Now, to three of the leading presidential candidates in Nigeria's February general elections, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, Peter Obi, and Rabiu Kwankwaso have made policy presentations at the Chatham House in London. The head of Nigeria's electoral body, INEC, Professor Mahmood Yakubu, also made a presentation at the Chatham House in London this week. Now, let's catch up with the political circuit now as Arise political editor, Sumner Sambo, joins me from our Abuja studios. Good evening, Sumner. Let's catch up with you as far as the Chatham House is concerned. Great to have you. Are we hearing any new policy soundbites from these candidates so far at the Chatham House? What have you learned so far from three of these candidates that have appeared in London?
Thank you so much, Bosun, and good evening to our viewers. There's really nothing so much new from what we've heard from the presidential candidates that have gone there. Basically, they were discussing domestic issues, which shouldn't have been the case at the Chatham House. I mean, the world is looking towards Nigeria to give direction to Africa as we move into some of the global issues that are affecting the continent. I mean, this is a country that in the past, I remember sometime in 1976, when the late Murtala Mohammed, as a president, head of state of Nigeria, then very young, during a meeting in Addis Ababa, went to speak to an extraordinary meeting of the OAU, and he made a statement, a profound statement that has been quoted all around the world up till date, and that is that Africa has come of age. That speech was specifically on the 11th of January 1976, and this is what Murtala had to say at that stage. He said, Africa has come of age. It's no longer under the orbit of any extra-continental power. And that shook not just the continent, but the entire world. These are the kind of statements that we expected our presidential candidates to go to the Chatham House to talk about. For example, the discovery of lithium in large quantities in Nigeria and other African countries like Mozambique, and the intrusion of Western companies like Tesla, who want to come in and continue the subservient relationship Africa has always had with the West, taking raw materials from the continent and taking it out there and processing it. And the current Nigerian government has stood its ground and saying that, look, no, if Tesla wants our lithium, they have to come here and invest. We expected our presidential candidates to stand on that podium at the Chatham House to tell us more about that. What would be their policies on such kind of decisions if they get into power? For example, when you see such a multinational corporation like that wanting to still take a bite of our resources, natural resources, we'll need to hear from these candidates on what exactly they will do differently. And if you look at the issues that we've had, for example, the COVID issues we've faced recently, yes, there was an attempt by the APC presidential candidate to want to touch on that and what he will do in West Africa. But nonetheless, we expected profound speeches. The position of Nigeria in Africa's affairs, talking about the issues affecting the continent and how Nigeria will help to stand. Don't forget, this is a country where we had declared that Africa will continue to be the centerpiece of our foreign policy. It's good to know that we've had some some former ambassadors in some of the campaign teams, like Ambassador Joe Keshi, who is in the Labour Party Presidential Campaign Council, Ambassador Uhumoibi, who is in the Atiku Campaign Council. We had expected that when they appear at the Chatham House, we will have some bites that will give us a continental view of Africa, and then, of course, how Africa is going to be faring with the rest of the world. But it's so sad, Bosun, what I heard were basically speeches that aimed at tackling roads. I mean, what would someone who is based in London be thinking about you sending roads, constructing roads in local government? This should have been the time to say Nigeria is open for business if they are elected. This is the challenges we are facing in terms of infrastructure.
In terms of foreign economic policy, Sumner, in terms of foreign economic policy, none of the candidates have said anything so significant about that at the Chatham House. They've all gone there to say the usual rhetoric, how to deal with generator importers into Nigeria, and as you said, big roles. So there's nothing about Brexit, for example. What's the relationship between the new administration in the UK and Nigeria? So we got this profit, but I'm not talking about this. Do we have any real political capital? Does it come to any of these candidates? Does it deliver votes going to Chatham House to make presentations?
Well, Bosin, I call whatever they've done there as the Chatham House Charter. It's actually a Chatham Charter because, I mean, they were discussing more of domestic issues rather than focusing on things. I mean, Nigeria is a very, very huge country, a country of 200 million people. This can offer large markets to, for example, the UK, which is no longer, because of the Brexit, it's no longer part of the EU, and it's sourcing new markets for its products. There should be a new relationship between Nigeria and the UK. What exactly should that relation be? That was a missed opportunity by some of these presidential candidates. And of course, it also should have been an opportunity for us to seek more partnership. Whether they win or they don't win, any of them should have been able to draw the attention of the world to the huge security challenges we are facing, which President Buhari continues to talk about it. Yes, there was an attempt by the Labour Party presidential candidate trying to talk about how he will declare sort of a state of emergency on the issues of electricity and all of that. But in terms of seeking investors, that's where we would have, seen the sort of strategy that he will put in place, because it's clear to everyone. For example, the Presidential Power Initiative is there by this outgoing government. How is he going to expand that deal with Siemens? And then, of course, how will that deal be further strengthened? Don't forget, Bosin, what we have is a government-to-government arrangement between the German government and the Nigerian government with Siemens in the middle. So if they are going to continue with that, you ought to declare a state of emergency on electricity. We need to hear more sound bites as to why these electricity companies should trust you, and whether you intend to move forward that government-to-government relationship, or you will even break it down further. So we need our presidential candidates not to discuss domestic issues as such platforms. The Chatham House is a prestigious platform. A lot of prestigious global leaders have spoken on that platform. And so when the issues are being discussed there, it should be issues of policies that will project Nigeria as being the centerpiece of Africa's decision-making, because we have a huge population, we are well respected. The next president of Nigeria should be someone who thinks like the Tafawa Balewas of the 1960s and the Murtala Muhammeds of the 1970s, including former President Olusegun Obasanjo, who they sold Nigeria to the world stage and discussed African issues that help the continent.
Some folks says there should be no Chatham House. Why don't you have a policy conversation in Nigeria? But we've seen some of these candidates have engagements with the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, for example, and the Nigeria Economic Summit Group. Do you think, how do you rate those engagements you've seen? Briefly.
Thank you, Bosin. Those engagements were more productive, I can tell you, than what was said at the Chatham House. Because it was more of like trying to create media circles at the Chatham House. Some of these presidential candidates come in with their own teams, trying to populate the Chatham House audience with their people here and there. I mean, that is not the situation that should have happened. Yes, good enough, we had some good things coming out of there, but I can tell you that the productive part of the engagements we have had so far have been very domestic. Look at that engagement at the Lagos Chamber of Commerce, I mean, and the NESG. We've got, lots of opportunities to be able to look into the thinking, the economic thinking of these presidential candidates, and they've been speaking more to us, to the economic intelligentsia, better than what we saw at the Chatham House. So one continues to wonder whether that's not the reason why Atiku Abubakar has seen no reason to actually go to the Chatham House again, considering that he had been there previously, and it looks like it didn't have any impact in his previous campaigns, and that's why he doesn't want to go there. So we've seen Governor Nyesom Wike, for example, a national state governor going there in 2017, and just last year we had Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu of Lagos going there. I mean, those should be platforms for getting multilateral corporations, bilateral corporations that will be helpful to us, not going there to actually open up our domestic issues. Every country has its own problems, and we shouldn't go there and advertise what looks like a charter that doesn't add any much value to us.
Sambo, I understand that Chatham House
that's
charter.
Where I see it.
That's the Chatham House charter. As you said, it's not just a charter, by the way. But I guess we've missed a whole lot of opportunities there, selling Nigeria internationally and globally on that very prestigious platform which the Chatham House is. Thank you so much. Sumner, we're touching base with you on the political circuit. Thank you. Have a great evening out of our Abuja studios.